It was my decision to come to Canada. I think that was probably the only proactive decision I made, because I sometimes just work with whatever life throw at me, and instead of making a proactive decision. So leaving the country and come to Canada was probably the first proactive decision I made myself.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Immigrant's Life podcast, where we share stories of people who left their country to chase a better life. I'm Daniel DiBiase, and in this episode I had the pleasure to chat with Ran. She's originally from China and moved to Canada to study. Because of her grades and how the Chinese education system is designed, she couldn't get into the university she wanted, so she decided to study abroad. She's now been living in Vancouver for the last 6 years. In this episode, we talk about learning English and the things that helped us learning it quicker. She struggled quite a bit with the language at first, and going through university and following the lectures was very challenging. Ran also shares why she prefers the lifestyle here in Canada and why she decided to stay. Before moving to my conversation with Ran, consider subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, and it would be great if you could give us a review on Apple Podcast or Podchaser. This will help this podcast grow and reach more people. And now, please enjoy my conversation with Ran. Hi Ran, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me.
No worries, my pleasure. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. I'm very good. So Ran, should we start maybe say from where are you originally from?
Sure. I'm from China, and I moved to Vancouver 6 years ago in 2014. I came here for university.
Can I ask you, at what age did you leave China?
I was 19 when I moved.
Okay, and so you finished your school education in China, at least high school, and then you started university here in Vancouver?
Yeah, so I graduated from high school there. I actually attended university in China for half a year while I studied for IELTS. I didn't do very well in our kind of a graduation exam and you enroll into university with that grade. I didn't do very well in that grade in that exam, so I couldn't get into the school I liked. So I decided to pursue maybe a university overseas. And back then, my best friend was studying at University of Toronto. So I was like, maybe I'll go there and meet him there. But I ended up in Vancouver.
Okay, so does that mean that university in China are more competitive than abroad, or at least here in Canada?
Well, we have more population there, so
fair enough.
And it's like a one-time chance. You don't get a second chance, not like else that you can take as many times as you want until you get the grades you need to enroll into a good university. In China, you only get one chance, and if you screwed up, you can either go back to school and take grade 12 again, and then take the exam next year. But I decided not to do it, and just maybe take this way instead.
Was it easy for you to decide to leave China, leave your family and everything to move abroad and studying abroad?
For me, the hard part is to study English and get the IELTS grade I need to get into UBC or U of T. That was definitely hard because I guess you can relate to that too. When you don't have that language environment, it's hard just to study from the books. You don't get to speak the language with anyone around you, and it's just kind of hard to get into that. But instead of leaving my family, I guess my parents were quite busy with their work when I was little, and I was left alone at home quite often. So I'm always used to being independent or being alone. So I guess leaving the family wasn't that hard for me back then. And I was just very excited to be able to, kind of keep the distance from my mom because she kind of wanted to control everything in my life. So, yeah.
So what was your English level when you moved to Canada? It was like, were you able to speak English at the time, or?
We study English from primary school, but I was thinking that's more, they teach you how to take the exam instead of using it in daily life. So I was probably better in reading and writing than listening and speaking. But when it comes to speaking English, I had to process the Chinese in my brain first, then translate to English and then speak. You can probably relate to that as well.
Absolutely, yes.
So I would say I probably didn't learn much more words after I moved to Canada, but the speaking process, I can now think in English and speak in English.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. You're totally right. Even I was like, at the beginning, was have to think in Italian and then translate to English. It was like this process will take several seconds.
Yeah.
And in a conversation, you can't really do that.
Yeah.
You can do that if you start a conversation. Maybe you want to ask a question to somebody. I will start processing the question in my mind, and then I would just go for it.
Yeah.
But in a conversation, especially, I found this in say like being funny, saying jokes.
Yeah.
You know, the time needs to be right.
Yeah.
And when you try to translate in your hand, the time is always off.
Yeah, and I guess after you heard yourself, it was like, it sounds funnier in my mind in Chinese.
Totally.
Yeah.
But even then, the sentence structure in Chinese and English are similar or are completely different?
It's quite different. We don't have past tense, future tense. There are so many sentence structure or terms in English, but we don't have that in Chinese. So sometimes when I wanted to say I ate, I would say I eat, and I was like, oh, I should say ate instead of eat. So that was quite different to make that transition. And also in Chinese, he and she, it pronounced the same way. So I still sometimes make mistake, like refer a he as she or she as a he. That was the hard part to overcome as well.
Okay, interesting. And for the education, when you get into the university, how hard was to get like a good grades and taking exam and everything with your English level?
It was very hard, to be honest. I remember the first term I almost failed one of the course, and I don't initiate a conversation in class. Like I always wait for other people to talk to me first. So I don't think I made any friends in class. So the first term I took, I didn't even know there was lab session, there was homework. You need to go to this website and take whatever quiz from home. So I missed quite a lot of assignments. And I ended up just like studying from YouTube, finding the videos about this topic, because I can barely understand anything in lecture, especially a topic that I never learned about in the past. It was computer science. Like I didn't even know what copy paste was back then. So it was very hard for me to catch up and finally learn like, oh, there's quiz, there's lab, there's, lots of different things.
I bet even because even for me, when I moved to New Zealand with pretty much no English, the hardest part at work was like understanding the people. And I work and just give you some instruction and then you go do your job. But in a lecture, you need to listen to the conversation for a long time, like hours and hours.
Yeah.
And I remember like when I was trying to listen to even like a normal conversation, which is only like a few minutes long, I was getting so tired just to trying to understand what they were saying. Like that's why I was asking that question. It's just like it must be really tiring and very overwhelming, even just to studying and understand what they were saying and get good grades.
It's very hard to focus when you don't know what you should be focused on, especially say like in computer science, there are so many terminologies I don't even know what they mean. So it's very hard to focus when you don't even know what that person is talking about. So the first term was definitely hard for me, but I guess after the first year, it got a little bit easier.
And what did you use? What kind of trick did you use or anything that you use to learn language?
First one is definitely practice. I lived in a homestay back then, and we have other English-speaking friends living in the same house. So I forced myself to talk to them, and that definitely helps because you can pick up what words they use for a certain thing, or how their structure of speaking English or their accents. You definitely pick up a lot from them. And the second, I try to watch YouTube videos, find a topic that I'm interested in. That gets me easier to listen in. I also, in my third year, I worked in a grocery store, just try to, because I mentioned before, like I don't initiate conversation in daily life. So I guess working in a grocery store, it kind of forced me to start a raw conversation with a customer. So that, I think that helped, but definitely like forcing myself to practice and speak more, making mistakes, because you learn from mistakes.
Yeah, I agree. I actually, one of my tricks I use to, especially like from pronunciation, because the way I learn the language is not, I've never been a good student. And as you said before, even in China, you start English, learning English like in first grade. It's the same in Italy, but I left high school and I didn't know anything of English. I was, at that point, I was probably studying English for at least 6-7 years or something like that. But because I've never been like a good student, I didn't know anything in English. Even to take my English exam to graduate from high school, I just tried to remember by heart a few sentences. But even then, because I wasn't a good student, I probably learned half of the sentence and I completely failed my exam, but they let me go. Anyway, but the thing that I was trying to say is that the way I learn the language is not through grammar. Like, you study the sentence, the part into the sentence. I can't do that. So the way I learn is to hear other people saying all the sentences, even like movies, TV shows would really help. So you just create like a pieces of sentences that you can just put together. And for me to learn that, even the pronunciation, and that makes me feel when I say that, it can sound right or wrong in my head because I know the sentence, how the sentence should be. And one of the things helped me for the pronunciation and things was songs. I was taking my phone in the shower. I had my phone in a plastic bag, so it was at the time was not waterproof. So I had my phone in a plastic bag, in the sealed plastic bag, so I could see the screen. I would just singing in the shower. I have the lyrics and like a singing in the shower with the lyrics, like a karaoke. It was helping me to learn these sentences and helping with the pronunciation because I could hear the singer, their pronunciation. So I was trying to repeat it. And that helped me quite a bit.
That's funny. I think that's actually, I guess, like when you watch a TV show or like me, YouTube videos, when you learn English that way, that's kind of the native way. Like, because before I asked my roommate to prove my writing, and then we're like, it sounds weird. I'm like, how? It's subject, verb, object, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, we don't speak English this way. And I was like, okay, then how do you structure the sentence? Like, we don't know. I just write it and it sounds like I read it and it sounds right to me. So I guess, it's just now like you speak it and you'll be like, that sounds right. And so I'm like, that sounds odd to me, I think that's a native way to learn.
Yeah, I'm still doing that even when I write. Maybe I write and my head, maybe I still have this like a kind of translation between Italian and English. So when I write down and then I read out loud and this doesn't sound right. So I try to move the things right. Yeah, now it sounds right. And do you have any regrets about leaving your country, leaving China?
I mean, I don't regret leaving the country, but sometimes, because now I graduated, I started working here, and I don't have any recent plan to move back to China. But I definitely, if you compare like the life here and in China, I think I kind of gave up that convenience of life because in China, for example, online shopping is huge thing. You can buy almost everything online and the shipping is mostly free. You get your products within 2 days. Here is not that convenient, honestly. But I mean, it's my choice. I work in Beijing for 2 months in my first year of school. I personally didn't like that pace of life in that city, and I prefer like slower pace, not that much competition kind of life. So that's my choice, and I don't have any regret.
Okay, so you kind of partially answered my follow-up question, which is like, why did you decide to stay in Canada?
Biggest reason, honestly, is my boyfriend. He is a native here, and he doesn't speak any Chinese. He's actually the first person I met in Vancouver. And we have been dating since 2014. So I guess it's just natural for me to stay after I graduated. I didn't even doubt about if we should move to China together.
So having a boyfriend, do you think that helped you learning the language?
For sure, because I need to learn how to communicate with him. We don't fight, unfortunately, which would definitely help as well. But he definitely helped me pick up the language. He corrects me when I make a mistake. That's actually very helpful because I would rather making mistake in front of him than somebody else. But yeah, because he doesn't speak my language, I have to learn his language, which is, good thing because we're in Canada.
It's really hard for somebody to correct you. Even when I started, even right now, when I say something that is not grammatically correct, people don't correct you. They don't say, Daniel, you shouldn't put an S at the end because, it's third person or whatever. Even before, when my English was really bad, if people didn't understand, they would just ask me to repeat. But if they would understand, but the sentence wasn't the proper English, they didn't correct me. They were just, okay, I understand what you say, and they would just reply. It's really hard to find those people that corrects you if you say something wrong.
Yeah, I think you have to be close enough to correct someone's English. Even my close friend, they don't correct me when I said something they didn't understand and I had to rephrase. I think it's only my boyfriend. He wants me to speak better English for my own good because I honestly, as I said, I barely communicate with anyone in school, and I didn't have any confidence to find an internship or a job or join any club when I was in university. So he was really the only one I felt comfortable speaking English without rethinking everything. But I'm very grateful that he helped me and corrected me when I made a mistake.
Yeah, I agree 100% because that's not super common. Even I have to say that I'm not a good person that corrects people because I remember my ex, she was trying to learn Italian. She wanted to learn Italian. So she would ask me to speak Italian to her, teach her a little bit of Italian, but it was hard for me to say something in Italian every once in a while and try to teach her Italian. Even when we went to Italy, I was doing the same thing. It was just hard for me to correct her, to say, no, you shouldn't say this. Probably I will probably correct her 40% of the time. Because most of the time, okay, I know what you mean, and you just move forward. It is hard to, because it's really tiring. Especially if you're trying to have a conversation, you can't solve the person every time that the person says something wrong. At the end of the day, you don't have a good conversation. It's hard to have a full conversation if you keep interrupting that person. So I have to say, I admire your boyfriend is doing what he does, because it's not easy.
Yeah, I think he did a good job. I believe I still make mistake when we talk, but he doesn't correct me 100% of the time. Otherwise, I would be like, okay, shut up already. But yeah, he did a good job. He only corrects me when it's necessary, and I will confuse someone else if I say it this way.
Yeah, my ex actually did a great job, because she wasn't correct me. She was just repeat the word. If I say the word in a different past sense or something, she was just not correct me. She would just repeat the same word in the right way. Yeah. So at first I was I didn't really connect the dots, but after a while I was I started figuring out oh, okay, that means that so I would just repeat the word or repeat the sentence with the right word. And that actually helped me. Even pronunciation, she was making fun of me of my pronunciation, with the TH, because I can't do it. I'm getting better, but still not very good. Yeah. When you say thinking, you should feel a th. I use an F. Kind of sound like a thinking with F, not with a TH. So she was making fun of me, and sometimes helps. I changed the pronunciation on different words because of her making fun of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
And what was the biggest upside about immigrating, about moving to Canada?
I guess it's quiet here, and I don't have to. I kind of put all my life behind. My best friend is still in China. I keep in touch with 2 or 3 of my best friends for sure, but other friends I just totally lost in touch. And I guess it was I wasn't a very good student either back then, honestly, and I probably made some bad friends, according to my mom. And I kind of just like put them all behind, started a new life. I guess it wouldn't make sense if I was still in China. Even though I was in another city, I believe some friends would like to catch up, and I usually don't say no. So I guess the upside is you get to restart your life, even though I was just 19. And the other side is, I guess I would say, I guess I think my life in Canada is more relaxing than what I would have in China, because the population and the number of people you have to compete with, and I guess the whole career culture, I think I like it more in the career culture in Canada.
And what do you think is the main difference in the career culture?
I mean, I never really worked in China before. But according to my mom, in China, you have to have like relationship with say the owner or the boss that you will move up faster. But in Canada, I wouldn't say it doesn't exist, but at least the company I work for, I think it's a very fair system that they promote the people with the ability instead of the relationships. But I mean, there is definitely upside in China too. I guess if you have the ability to move up, you can end up making more money than we can in Canada. I guess it's just the economy is better in China. But it depends on what kind of people you are. If you're more aggressive and you want to do very well in your job field, I guess at least in Vancouver is not a city for you to be a workaholic. It's just a beautiful province for you to, enjoy life instead of just work, no work-life balance. I guess it's just in China, it's there. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, the work-life balance. It's hard to have that in China.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine that was from China, I think from the north part of China, but he was telling me that the culture around work, around society in China, everything everything is around money. If you want to be like a person in your society and the people look up to, you need to have money, you need to be rich. He told me even that he got married with his wife mainly because he had a job and because he had a car, or probably even because he had a house or something like that. So he needed to prove to his parents-in-law that he was financially in a good situation. Otherwise, they wouldn't let him marry his wife.
Of course. I mean, if you, especially for a boy, I guess the stress is if you're not from a wealthy, not like I wouldn't say wealthy, but you if you're not from a family who can buy you a condo, buy you a car when you want to get married, the parents of the girl might not approve it. Or I mean, it's definitely changing now. Like the younger generation, they probably don't even care about getting married or having kids. But I mean, at least for my parents, their generation, it's still about, like, marriage is not only about the two individuals, it's about the two families. So you get evaluated not only by your potential, your qualities, your whatever. It's about your parents, your family. That's definitely something that I don't like about the culture in China.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I agree. I mean, I agree. It's not that I agree. It's just I'm not used to the kind of culture. And for me, it's just thinking that my family has any right to say who should I marry to. For me, it's just crazy, but that's part of my culture. So that maybe for other cultures, seeing my point of view, it's totally crazy for them. So Yeah. And what was the biggest challenge you have to face when you moved to Canada?
First thing is definitely the language. I would say even after 6 years, I'm still struggling with it sometimes. Especially my job is a client-facing role. So it requires me to fully understand my clients, but sometimes it's just that the word they're using or I don't fully understand them and I have to ask them to repeat. That's definitely a struggle that I have, but it definitely helps when you talk to your other colleagues, especially native colleagues, and they say, "Oh, we have that issue too. Like it's okay to ask them to repeat," because that's just English as our second language. Sometimes you think like, do I look stupid? Do I sound stupid when I ask them to repeat or rephrase? But it seems normal for native speaker too. So that definitely makes me feel more confident in my job as well.
Even because English has so many different accents. Because I remember when I was in New Zealand, I was talking with my roommate at the time, who was from Australia, and which the two accents are kind of similar. But I was like complaining with him because I couldn't understand when natives, New Zealand people were talking. And he said, "Yeah, don't worry, Daniel. I've been speaking the English for 27 years and I still don't understand sometimes what the Kiwi says." And another episode at work, I remember a Kiwi person referring to a Scottish person. He told this like a Scottish person, like, "Please speak English." And it was like a super rude to say, but we couldn't understand what this like a person from Scotland was saying. Just like his accent was like so thick that we really had our time understanding. So especially over the phone and in a city like Vancouver, you're probably talking with the people from all over the world with so many different accents. So being a native doesn't really mean that you will understand everybody with so many different accents. So I don't know if you have the same problem, but for me at the beginning, it was like talking over the phone was impossible. I got to the point where I wasn't even like an answer to the phone call. I would just send them straight to the voicemail so I could understand, re-listen many, many times.
Totally, yeah. Even at first, I wouldn't pick up phone call from my boyfriend. I was like, text me, please. If I can read it in black and white, I can understand better. But definitely even with my name, because my name is not like a traditional English name, and I would have to spell my name in Starbucks when they ask for my name. So I even made up an English name so they don't have to ask again. But my boyfriend told me, it's your name and you should teach them how to spell it instead of making up a name for them. And he told me even his name is Neil, and he told me even sometimes people spell his name wrong, which is an English name. So I guess you just have to share your concerns with other people and know that it's common. It's not just your fault that your name is not an English name, or you ask them to rephrase what they say. I guess like being more open up to people definitely solve a lot of my problems.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't know. For me, like having like I'm pretty lucky. I got my name is pretty much international, and I never had that problem. I have big problem with my last name, but with my first name, I never had problems. But with my other friends, they have or in English names or like in a name they're not English. And I find it always funny when people spell it wrong, because then you figure out what they came out with. So even then, I kind of like I wish I had like a weird name or not like such a common name. So I would just play with it and see what the people would write on my cup of coffee.
Yeah, for sure. I got Ram with an M all the time, or Ron, or Ran with an E, like anything. Sometimes in email, people thought I made a typo of my name and call me Ryan. That happens all the time too. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend who had from. I have a friend that was from Estonia, and his name is Vahur. Mm-hmm. First of all, it's spelled Vahur, and first of all, when I was trying to ask Siri to call him, and Siri will understand not Vahur but something else, and they said like, Daniel, that's not I can't do that, or Daniel, that's not appropriate. So even for him, when he was trying to order something over the phone, I was trying to order coffee, it got to the point where it was like getting so crazy, and it was like I couldn't bother to every time spell out his name, so he came out with a different name. Now every time he orders coffee or something, he used the name Thor, like the superhero.
Oh yeah, Thor. That's so funny.
Do you feel lucky to be an immigrant?
Definitely. And especially for my personal experience, my it's always quite smooth for me. I guess because my experience is quite straightforward. I came here, study, graduated. I got a 3 years work permit automatically. And then I was able to apply for PR 1 year after I started working, and I got my PR before the pandemic, thank goodness. So it was very smooth experience for me. I think we are very lucky in Canada. The immigrating process is fairly simple compared to other countries like US. So for me, I definitely feel lucky. I was able to compare with being an international student and pay 5 times higher tuition fee than local student, and paying the healthcare premium, which was eliminated for PR or citizen. I definitely feel lucky that I was able to get my PR. But I also feel lucky that I made a decision to move to Canada, so I got to experience a different lifestyle. And I met my boyfriend on the other side of the world, so that was definitely, I would consider being lucky as well.
Speaking of the immigration process, was it easy for you to leave China to get a visa for Canada?
It was easy for me because my family, we never apply for. I said that because I know my other friends who their family applied to immigrant before, but that got declined. So when he applied for student visa, he got declined as well. But my family, we never tried to apply for Canadians immigration. So I got approved. I believe I got approved right away for study permit, and then I got the bachelor from UBC, so I got a work permit for 3 years automatically. So I think that was definitely, like, I didn't have to have a job first before I can apply for work permit. It was given to you automatically, no matter or not you have a job. So it was quite easy for me.
If you could go back in time to when you left, what would you say to your younger self?
I don't think I would say anything. I would just let her do her thing and figure out what she wanted. Maybe there is another possibility than my current self. But yeah, just go with her. I guess just go with your heart. I honestly didn't think about what I wanted to do up until my 18, probably. My ex-boyfriend, we were together for a very long time as well when we were students, and I was always following his dreams. Like, he wanted to go to that school, he wanted to go to that city, and I'll be like, okay, I want to go there as well. But after we broke up, I'm like, okay, then what do I want to do? So up until I was 18 or almost 19, I was like, okay, I want to leave. And as I said, like, restart my life.
Okay, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. That's it. I mean, 19. I mean, you left China at 19. I mean, that's still pretty young. I don't think at 19 I was even thinking about my future, to be honest.
I mean, it was my decision to come to Canada, but nowadays those international students, they left home probably at 17. I believe that's the proper age you go to university. But that's sometimes their parents' arrangement, or they started with international school earlier, and that's their path to go study abroad. But it was my decision to come to Canada. I think that was probably the only proactive decision I made, because I sometimes just work with whatever life throw at me, and instead of making a proactive decision. So leaving the country and come to Canada was probably the first proactive decision I made myself.
Which makes a big difference if you make your own decision or if it's a path that was being pre-designed for you. I mean, if you're growing up thinking that, okay, when I get to 17, I have to move to a new country, you kind of know that that's going to be the path. You can kind of be prepared. But when you find yourself in the situation and you find the courage to make the decision and to leave your life behind, move to a new country with where you can't speak the same language, where you don't understand them and you don't know anybody, it's a big leap of faith.
Totally. I mean, for those international students who knew they were coming here before they came, they probably already made friends who will come together, so they have friends when they arrive here. But when I came here, I had no friends, no families, not a single person I know here in Vancouver. So that was a big change for me.
Which, my perspective, not knowing anybody in a new country, I think is somehow, yes, it makes it harder. Maybe it makes you feel lonely at the beginning. But at the same time, the experience and the people you met, you wouldn't meet otherwise, because you stick around with your friends. You don't really trying to meet other people. I'm so glad that I left Italy on my own, because they're just for the friendship and the people I met, just because I have to meet somebody else. Because if I was with a partner, I was with a friend, maybe we could find a place together, we would live together. But because I was alone, I was like kind of financially forced to live with other people. And that was the best decision. I met so many cool people that I can call my friends, and people from all over the world. It's just so amazing.
Totally.
I wouldn't have done it probably otherwise.
I mean, especially China. I'm from a small city. If I was living in Beijing or Shanghai, I might have been able to meet more people from different countries. But I'm from a small city, and we barely see different faces in our city. So for me to be able to meet people from different cultures, different background, different countries, I definitely wouldn't be able to do that if I stay in China.
And speaking of that, did you have some kind of cultural shock when you moved to Canada?
I wouldn't say so. I think I just adapt to difference pretty well. Do you have any culture shock when you moved to here? Maybe give me an example that would trigger me to think about something else.
I mean, when I moved here, I was kind of prepared. But when I moved to New Zealand, I didn't have like a cultural shock. Most there was the language barrier, but that was not like a cultural shock. I was probably feel like that was crazy. Just for some time, I have to remind myself that I was in this small island on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
But not cultural shock, no. But I interview other people that moved from other countries to China, and for them it was definitely a huge cultural shock, just from the language, the culture, the people. It's so different. That's why I thought maybe you had the opposite. So coming from China, from a small city in China, to a Western country like Canada, maybe you had that cultural shock.
I kind of understand why people who go to China would have culture shock, because I guess even like the food is very different from here. But I guess because Canada is it's already a multicultural city, and you have not only Canadian food, but you also have like Japanese, Korean. It's already like quite Asian infused. So I wouldn't say it was culture shock, but I mean, definitely I get to experience the festivals here as well, like Thanksgiving, which we don't celebrate, or even Christmas. Like it wasn't a big thing in China. So being able to celebrate those festivals with my boyfriend's family, it's a Caucasian family, so see their traditions, that's kind of like new experience to me too, but I wouldn't say it was culture shock.
Okay, that's interesting, because definitely when I went to Japan, it was definitely completely like it blew my mind. Because even maybe mostly it's the language. Yeah. Because you don't see the same kind of alphabet. You can see the old completely new alphabet. Yeah. When you try to move around, you don't have any indication where you have to go, even just signs. I mean, maybe you can find the toilet because there's a sign of the classic, the toilet. But if you're looking for the exit, if it's not, there's not a symbol next to it, you don't even know what exit will look like. Just anything, even the name of the city, the name or the street or whatever. Yeah. It's just so completely different. While if you go, for example, if I would go to Spain or to France, I can kind of figure it out because we got the same alphabet. I can pick maybe the same kind of similar word in Italian or English. They sound kind of similar. I can make sense of it. But in a culture, if I go to Japan or to China with completely different alphabet, I can't do that.
You can't spell any words because
absolutely not.
Yeah, that's I guess for people who are used to alphabet, they will be like, what language is this? Like every word is individual. Like they don't connect to each other, or they can look similar, but you can't spell you can't spell letters like in English or Italian, the other language. So like some of the Asian languages are totally different from like the other Latin language.
Absolutely. Another thing I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Asian countries like China, like Japan, they have like a strong culture. They have their own custom, which are very different from the Western world, which where I'm from. So even then, I can tell from my experience in Japan. I've never been to China, but even then, like going to the bathroom, you have to. You walk into a building, you have to remove your shoes and go to the bathroom. You find your slippers to go to the bathroom. It's just like a smoking inside of the bar and the restaurant. I don't know. People are even out to say hi. They just
yeah. That sounds very Japanese.
Exactly. All of that is just like they are. I don't know. It's so. I don't know. I found like the culture is it's so different that from the rest of other countries. That because if you move, I don't know, from Europe to the US, yes, the culture is different, but it's not that different. It's pretty much the same.
Well, I would say in China, it's already, I guess the country itself has the culture shock from many, many years ago when like maybe the first time Chinese saw McDonald's, KFC, but nowadays it's, especially in big cities, like you see other cultures everywhere too, like Western food, Western restaurants, they are everywhere. So I guess it would... If this was like 30 years ago and I just moved to Canada, I'll be like, wow, I've never seen these things before. But they are everywhere now in China as well. So I guess that definitely prepared me to adapt into the Canadian culture or food or other stuff.
I'd like to ask you another question, and feel free to answer or not. I was thinking about this earlier today, because I was talking with somebody else in the show. I don't remember who. Somebody asked me about how immigrants are seen here in Vancouver, here in Canada, and I said that my personal experience was completely fine. I never had any problem with people treating me different because I was from Italy. Actually, it was completely the opposite. But I found that people, at least here in Vancouver, the only people I can hear be at least be kind of racist is against Asian people. And I even say on the podcast, and I think mostly is driven by jealousy, because a lot of Asian people are coming here are wealthy. So you can see people like young people driving like a super fancy cars, and I think part of the racism starts from jealousy. Have you ever had this kind of experience yourself?
I personally, luckily, I didn't have any, never received any racism comment myself. I have other friends who did. Sometimes not racism, but some clients would make like political comment on me, or like not me, but Chinese government to me, which is totally irrelevant to myself. But yeah, luckily I didn't have any racism comment or attack to me personally. But I did feel when I just moved to Vancouver, I did feel kind of discrimination or ignorance from maybe say like salesperson in store when you don't speak proper English. But that I don't take it as that's for Asian. That's probably more like language barrier. But I think Vancouver, we have so many different races, and I don't think racism is an issue here, which I consider us being lucky. But I did hear comments from local, especially from Caucasian, that they think it's rich Asian who caused the high housing price market in Vancouver, something like that. Which I wouldn't say it's not true, because Vancouver is a beautiful city, and but the government allowed foreigner to buy houses, condos unlimitedly, if that's a proper word. But it's not just Chinese or Asian. There are other races there, but people focus on Asians sometimes. Hope that. Sorry, I already forgot your original question. I'm like just blah 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 blah.
No. You did great. I think it was just a good insight about that, because as you said, yes, we are lucky. I don't see much of racism here. At least nothing compared to what they're seeing in the U.S. But definitely, I heard previously comments against people from Asia, especially people from China, mostly because we don't know much about China. China's kind of always been some kind of like a mystery to other culture, and second of all, because usually most of the time, like a Chinese people as a culture, I don't want to put everything in one big group, but mostly like Chinese people are famous to be kind of on their own, create like their own community, and not really integrate properly with the culture, and probably even that fuels racism with people that don't understand what's going on.
I totally agree. I usually, even my friends who are not Chinese, they would tell me like there's a group of Chinese students in her class or in her lab. They only they don't talk to other people, or they still speak Chinese in class that no one else would understand. I think I know it's language barrier and it's hard to pick up another language, but I would still consider it polite to speak English in a big class that other people would understand, although like the topics might be irrelevant to them. But I don't think anyone, even for myself, like I used to live with 2 Cantonese roommates. They can speak Mandarin, but their first language is Cantonese. When they speak Cantonese in front of me, I will be like, I know you're not talking about me, because I can kind of understand like maybe 40-50%, but I think I would appreciate if they can speak Mandarin in front of me, even though they were not talking about me. So I think Chinese students, they definitely need to do better, and not just socialize within their groups. If you already come to Canada, why not just embrace different cultures and meet different people? And I agree, most people have never been in China, and their impression about China was probably from Canadian media, US media, which I wouldn't say it's completely true. But I want everyone to consider a person as his or her individual, not categorize her as Chinese, or just forget about the stereotype, because everyone could be different, and a Chinese can disagree with another Chinese, and they can be a totally different person, which is, to every race, really. I know there's stereotype about every race, but maybe get to know this person personally instead of, categorize her as Chinese and he or she will think like this, do like this. Just forget about that and get to know that person.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. If people relate with your story wants to get in touch with you, where people can find you?
I'm not very active on social media, but if people want to connect, they can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for having me. Nice chatting with you.
Yeah, the same. It was really a pleasure chatting with you. It was really fun. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you like the show, consider subscribe and leave us a review. You can find the show notes with everything we discussed in this episode at emigrantslife.com/episode 22. And if you want to be my guest and share your story, you can visit emigrantlife.com/yourstory. Thanks again for listening. Talk to you in the next one. Ciao.